Welcome to Cooking with Madho. Namaste, Sitaram, Assalamu Alaikum. I hope you're enjoying the start of the new year. And as we look towards back to school meals that are economical, nutritious, and very healthy for the kids, we want to get some vegetables in. So today I'm teaching you how to make a vegetarian pasta and also a mac and cheese with a cauliflower topping seen here. And I will also show you how to make a classic Italian vegetarian eggplant lasagna, similar to the eggplant parmesan seen here. So these meals are really interesting because they're economical, they're vegetarian, and they encourage children to eat their vegetables so they don't become like Cookie Monster. And here we have our tomatoes being boiled for my marinara sauce. You could use canned tomatoes, and you remove, of course, the skin if you're boiling the tomatoes, and then you blend them. So I'm not using canned tomatoes. I'm familiar with many Italian restaurants and even households buying huge amounts of canned tomatoes, but I go old school on this. I bought 1 pound of tomatoes, I boiled it, then blended it, and into a little bit of oil, EVOO, extra virgin olive oil. In went some onion, some garlic, 2 cloves of garlic, half of an onion to 1 pound of tomatoes, and then I added my Italian seasonings like marjoram, sage, but definitely basil and oregano. Basil is the star. And if you could finally chop some basil leaves into this, especially at the end, all the better. There's no lid put on that marinara sauce because it's just left on very low heat for 20 minutes so that all the flavors are infused. With the marinara sauce well made, I then proceed to make my stir-fried version of vegetables for my pasta. But this is not placed on high heat. Even though I'm using a skillet, there is no attempt at a Chinese-styled wok effect. No, none of that. What I want is a kind of naturally occurring fresh vegetable taste, and I don't want to expose it to high heat. It's more for steaming. And then I add my pasta and my pasta sauce. I start to toss it around, and that's what we see there. Is there cheese on top? Of course there is. I'm using vegetarian rennet-free cheese. You use cheese the way you choose to, liberally or in conservative amounts for whatever dietary requirements you have. Milkana and Anchor are very good for providing rennet-free Hindu vegetarian cheese. My next product, I'm showing you how to make some eggplant here. So I cut the eggplant longitudinally. I've extracted the water by salting it, taking away the bitterness of the eggplant. And once I remove the water, I'm going to just place this on some EVOO again into the oven and take it out of the oven. But this is the initial phase. Meanwhile, you're probably wondering, what other dish am I making? Well, I'm making some mac and cheese at the same time. So this is your typical mac and cheese that you make in your pot. You know, after boiling the macaroni, what do? You just kind of, you create a little bit of salt, rather milk. You mix milk in with butter and you add the macaroni and the packet of cheese. I do not actually cook this on my own. I do not eat this on my own, but it was recommended to me by a Jamaican family to help make this for a Jamaican child who's passionately in love with mac and cheese. So I would have suggested using regular cheese, but people like to use the packet of cheese, you know, those classic packets of cheese. And that was the mac and cheese I created. So I laid that out on a baking tray. But what makes this mac and cheese when baked special is that here you see me boiling my cauliflower florets, and that will be topped onto the mac and cheese. But as with all things, you want some texture. You want some crust to the mac and cheese, don't you? So how do you get that crust or that texture? It is said butter is oftentimes used to create a roux with some butter, with some flour seen here. I've just added some water to this mix, and I have to stir this very assiduously, diligently, like any school getting ready, any student getting ready for back to school. I have to do this. Milk, some butter, some flour. It's still vegetarian, and I basically create my version of a roux. Why do we need a roux for mac and cheese? That's a kind of American style technique of adding texture and crust to the mac and cheese. So that's what I'm going to do. And I will basically eventually pour this onto the top of the mac and cheese, on top of the florets. So on top of the mac and cheese that was pre-cooked, the cauliflower florets will be going in, and then I will add my roux with some cheese. My baking tray contains the mac and cheese, the cauliflower florets seen here, and I am then going to add to the cauliflower florets my roux and cheese. I'll pour in the roux and the cheese so that you get that wonderful crust when it is eventually placed in the oven at 400 degrees. I'm just adding my roux here, and I'm using my spoon just to make sure that all the roux is kind of evenly distributed on top. And the roux also has some cheese in it for sure. So the roux has some butter, milk, flour, cheese, and then I'm just going to top this up with a little bit of cheese again to give it that crust that people want. This is a very good dish that is especially for children. I have infused the mac and cheese here with cauliflower florets, but you could also try putting in vegetables like sweet pepper and grated carrots to give color, character, texture, and nutrition value. I'll always recommend sneaking in mac and cheese, or sneaking in with the mac and cheese some grated carrots. But here I'm just doing a garnish. I've used my grater because the greater half is yet to come in today's episode. So I put the cheese on top. We'll find out what the greater half is. But that is kind of my very messy kitchen back to school version of a mac and cheese here. Okay? And my Pyrex dish is used to lay out my eggplant. You're seeing the eggplant look kind of charred or baked. It's because they were in the oven for about 15 minutes. A little bit of EVOO went in, extra virgin olive oil. I added some biscuit crumbs. People say use panko crumbs, not a problem. But I just used simple crackers that I crushed, and I kind of layered it. So my eggplant was salted, water was extracted, the bitterness was taken out after half an hour to an hour, and then I placed it in a baking dish to bake initially for about 15 minutes. Then I take it out and I prepare the eggplant strips like lasagna strips here. The first layer we had the marinara sauce, then you see me putting on the eggplant. Then I'm going to top this up with some basic vegetables. I have some carrots and some sweet pepper in. I place that as a kind of middle layer, and I pour on the cheese, and then I'm going to place some more marinara sauce in it. So it's basically a case of a fun fact is that for this dish I actually used one medium-sized eggplant. To make a relatively family size based container of eggplant lasagna, I would really suggest that you get 2 large eggplants, 2 medium to 2 large eggplants. So then you could create more layers than what I have done. So I think a perfect recipe will be 2 large eggplants, and that could feed a family of 4 or 5. And you know, it's so important to probably just top up with some cheese. So I will eventually, you know, put this in the oven. As I've shown you here, that's how it looks. That's how it looks when I put all the cheese on top, when I put all the marinara sauce, and I put it in the oven and I take it out. This dish is not the eggplant lasagna. 30 minutes on high heat from the oven. This is our mac and cheese with cauliflower crust. This is our eggplant lasagna, and this only represents 1 eggplant. Look at that lasagna. Now, if it looks like it's low and it's not stacked up, you're correct. It's because I made it with a whopping 1 eggplant. But here's my sliced version of the mac and cheese with the cauliflower on top. Look at that presentation. Absolutely lovely. You could have that with some side vegetables, maybe into an oven. You could probably put some green beans, some potatoes. You could make some garlic potatoes, things to excite the kids, right? But I'm telling you, this mac and cheese with the cauliflower on top is an absolutely great way of integrating vegetables for kids at an economical cost. Okay. So thank you for looking at Cooking with Madho. My videos hopefully were riveting and provided wonderful opportunities for you to get new content in terms of back to school menus. My next episode I will feature a sofrito infused mixed bean stew. Really good. I'm also kind of featuring a way that it could be had with crackers. So see you soon for my next episode. But once again, eggplant lasagna and pasta with a star today. Bye bye, ciao gaio, firmilingue.